Good morning, good afternoon, and konbanwa wherever you are in the world. I am the idol to give you the wings to fly, Cyber Angel, Kamishiro at your service. And how is everyone doing today? Welcome, welcome. Hello, In Smiling Dog, Yube, Bio, Nara, Absolute Link, Demon Warrior, Shiny, Simon, Patient Person. Welcome, welcome. Oh gosh, you were sick all week, but you're feeling better now. I'm happy to hear that. Happy to hear that you're on the mend. Okay, knock on wood. I haven't gotten sick yet in the new year. And I feel like normally I would have already gotten sick with a cold around this time. So fingers crossed I stay okay, at least through March. I am a busy girl in March. Well, we know that because my 4-year anniversary is coming up. So at least, fingers crossed, we could last through March. But gosh, welcome in, welcome in. Oh no, Smiling Dog, you're sick. You're taking one for the team. Maybe that's why I'm not sick. Maybe I accidentally rubbed that curse off onto somebody else. Nice, just got off of work. Happy to hear that. Yeah, I had an idle side job today. A little busy, I will have to say that. But I got to hop on a call with some of the Prima girls. I hung out with Shiki and Iku earlier this morning. We were just hanging out, getting some work done. That was fun. But yeah, I got to work. I got some busy work. But hopefully, that means this weekend I can relax. Yeah. 4-year anniversary. Yeah, isn't that crazy? I've been doing this for 4 years. I mentioned how crazy it is thinking about it yesterday during stream, but even more so now. busy, Rita. But again, what have you come to expect from me, right? I feel like it's just par for the course now, right? Oh my gosh. I know, it's a long time. Yeah, March 2021, that's when I debuted Prison Project. It's 4 years hag age for VTubers. I don't even know what the average is for how long people VTube for, but I feel like, I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty considerable amount of time, I would think. Yeah. I think this is maybe on the higher end. I'm not sure. I haven't. Maybe I should go do a study on how many people, or how long people stay being a VTuber. Your guess is average is 5 years if they don't graduate before. Oh, that's fair. That's fair. I think 4 years is wow, oh my gosh, I can't believe I made it. You know what I mean? But yeah, welcome in. Today's just chatting. We do have a topic, but it's not gonna be presentation, formal outline. I wanted to do something a little bit more, I don't want to say lecture style, but presentation style today. But I took a little mental health day yesterday. Work's been very busy, idle side job work, but I also, on top of that, need to work on my projects and stuff. So I decided to take it easy yesterday, so I can not burn myself out. So I figured today, I'll set the topic, I'll set the sort of mood, the sort of energy for today, and then we can kind of just talk about it. If there's anything that's been on your mind regarding the topic, we can kind of talk about it together. Because, friendly reminder, I am not a licensed therapist. I'm not a professional in that regard. So I'm just here more so to start the conversation, get you thinking about this topic. And the reason why I chose this topic is twofold. The first reason, for those who don't know, we're talking about love today. Self-love. Essentially, love that is not just romance. And the reason why I wanted to talk a little bit about that today is because I feel like especially around Valentine's Day, I feel like people tend to get either really, really happy or really, really sad. I mean, obviously there are plenty of people who are middle of the line and don't really care one way or the other, but I feel like around this time people are often reminded about things that they'd rather. I feel like just holidays in general. Sometimes it can stir up some happy emotions for some people, and then sometimes for others it can be a difficult time thinking about memories they don't want to think about, or just bringing up some maybe more negative thoughts. So Valentine's Day, I feel like being one of those. I think a lot of people feel left out or lonely or similar to that. So I wanted to have this conversation today to talk a little bit about that. Yeah, you tend to see it a lot. And again, like I mentioned, it's not just Valentine's Day, but it's also just holidays in general. Like, New Year's, all the winter holidays. I've seen people feel like that, like on their birthday too. Because like birthday, it's like, yeah, it's super exciting, but also it can be a very scary time for change and things like that. Yeah, it's a very important topic, I think. I've actually talked about it a couple of times now. I think the one that I can think of most vividly is a conversation that I had with Mako on Archangel Radio. And we were talking about how there's such a emphasis on romance aside from other forms of love. And I feel like part of that is because of how we are as a society. But we'll get into that. We'll dive into it slowly, bit by bit. And the other reason why I decided to do this sort of chatting discussion moment is because, for those who don't know, I'm also an ambassador with To Write Love on Her Arms. And they reached out to me and said, hey, like if you have time, like you could either do a game stream, you could talk about it, do some sort of presentation. We'd really appreciate you spreading the word about, not just to Write Love on Her Arms' overall mission, but also about bringing this conversation of love and hope to my community, especially again during Valentine's. So I wanted to, help show you all that you're not alone, or this is a very normal thing to feel and experience. And then we can talk a little bit about how we navigate these feelings, right? So in the description, I did put a link to my portion of a campaign, their Valentine's Day Doesn't Have to Suck 2025 campaign. And if you do feel so inclined, and if you are able, if you feel comfortable to do so, you're more than welcome to check out that campaign and donate whatever you feel is comfortable to their cause. And if you want to know generally what sorts of milestones that you can achieve, whether it's today or any other day, they help build this mental health toolkit, which you can find in the description down below. And it's a free hub that you can use to access any practical tools to help build I call it your mental health toolbox, your resilience and ways for you to cope. And so raising money to help keep that resource funded and up and running. I think the number is somewhere around over 50,000 people a year use this tool to find help, whether it's reading or otherwise. So they also do student programming. So I think the number is like $250. You can equip almost like over 100 students, and with this program that they utilize to normalize mental health conversations in the classroom. Of course, one of their big missions as well is to reduce financial burden for folks who are looking for access to mental health resources. Because one of the big things that's often a barrier to people finding help for mental health concerns is financial, right? So part of their fundraising helps give people the chance to have a little sit down with a licensed mental health professional and essentially kickstart their journey of healing. But yeah, of course, there's many other ways to help the cause, I guess. So, help spread the news, talk about these topics with your loved ones, your friends, your family, bring this conversation up in different spaces, reduce the stigma, and show people that they're not alone in how they may feel. So just wanted to put that out there, that I was sort of given this idea to have this conversation by To Write Love on Her Arms. So thank you very much to Write Love on Her Arms for not only giving me this awesome idea, because this is a topic I'm very passionate about, but also being very supportive in I guess being an ambassador, it's like, oh yeah, if you want to do something, you want to talk about something, there's plenty of resources you can use to look more into the topic or research more. So huge thank you to them. And I think a lot of people have been doing fundraising for them as well. So if you want to, sit into their streams and listen to what they have to talk about, I think that'd be cool. You might learn something new. Yeah. It can be hard telling other people your issues. And I feel like for me, even someone like me, who I feel like often talks about her feelings, I feel like being able to hear other people who go through similar things, or, you know, just is able to sort of put into words how I feel, so I don't have to do not you know, I mean, obviously there's merit in putting your thoughts into words yourself, but sometimes when you have trouble thinking about it, right, and putting it into words yourself, sometimes it's helpful hearing other people talk about it. So you can kind of get an idea of how you can do it yourself. It's like you learn by seeing other people do it, right? Yeah, feelings are hard. Yeah, as someone who talks a lot about her feelings and is not afraid of showing her feelings, feelings are hard. Gosh, for sure. But speaking of that, let me segue with that into our topic today, which is love, and how love exists in more forms than just romance. And I don't know, it's kind of a broad topic, but essentially it's love that's not just romance, right? I feel like for Valentine's, we often, I call it the over-romanticization of romance, right? We put so much emphasis and so much importance on just love that we often feel like if we don't have, romantic love. Let me put that out there. See, even just like me, not even thinking about it, when I talk about like love, I always assume it's like a romantic love. Well, not always, but especially just now, like when we're having our conversation, I automatically defaulted to love being romantic love. So we often put emphasis on romantic love, right? That's the sort of, it feels like the end all be all, right? And you feel sort of like left out if that's not something you experience. Or like we have this idea that romantic love is more important than other kinds of love, like self-love or loving your friends and your family. So that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about this topic today, because a lot of people feel left out or hurt and long for this sort of love and connection. And I wanted to kind of start this conversation by acknowledging that feeling does suck. It does hurt, right? And any sort of feeling, right? That sense of loneliness or alienation, feeling like, oh, I guess I'm just like unlovable. You are seen. I see you. I see you. I hear you. It's completely valid to feel that way. And the reason why I feel like we feel that way is because I feel like, I say we as in society in general, right? Is because I feel like media and social media has sort of built this picture that, again, romance is this over-romanticized thing, that it's perfect, it's sweet, and it's gentle, and it's soft, and it's so warm and fluffy. But romantic love isn't the only form, or even like the highest form of love, right? That sort of feeling that you get when you watch like a romance anime, or you play like an otome game. That feeling of warmth and happiness and fluffiness doesn't just come from romantic love, right? You can feel very fulfilled and very, I don't know, loved from someone who's not like a romantic partner. You know what I mean? Platonic love is underrated. I agree. Gosh. But yeah, I wanted to start off by saying you're totally valid for feeling that way. You know, it can almost feel like you're missing out. You know what I mean? But in actuality, you know, you're not. So I wanted to take some time today to sort of do some unlearning. You know what I mean? Because I feel like especially, you know, when you're hearing about all this like lovey-dovey stuff on Valentine's Day, this romance anime, everyone's talking about like, you know, all this like coupley stuff and all that stuff. It can feel like that's the only thing that's important, right? When in actuality, that's not. Yeah. Yep. I'm pausing because I'm taking some time to look through the chat. See, somebody says, what is self-love? I've never heard of it. Yeah, so self-love, is basically just learning to love yourself. And I feel like self-love is often like, I feel like that's a huge part of the foundation of allowing yourself to experience love in other ways, if that makes sense. Because I feel like a lot of the times, you know, when people feel like they can't appreciate other forms of love as strongly as like romantic love, I think part of that comes from like being socialized to believe that romantic love is the only love that matters, right? But also like this sort of internal feeling like, oh, I guess there's just something about me that is unlovable. You know what I mean? And I feel like in order to sort of like get rid of that feeling of like, oh, I feel like I'm just not lovable. I feel like it's an internal and external thing, right? It's like, I say external thing because it's like you kind of have to unlearn some of the things that you learned growing up, right? Seeing in media or social media, you know, people celebrating romantic love over any other kind of love. But also learning that like there are parts of you that can be lovable, right? Because it does very much, it could definitely feel that way, right? You know, if not having like a romantic partner, especially with how media might portray that, right? Like, oh, you're a single person, like, oh, you're eating dinner alone on a Friday night. They kind of like paint it as some sort of like bad thing, like, oh, look at Lonely McLonely over here, doesn't have a date to the prom or whatever. But so I can understand why it might feel very real, and you're very valid for that. But that feeling you have isn't always, I guess, the fact, if that makes sense, right? You know, I think, I mean, obviously, like, there's things that everyone can work on, right? Like, self-confidence, social skills, you know, maybe there's a lot of things you need to work through, but that doesn't mean you're not worthy of love. You know what I mean? Yeah, I feel like if you find yourself struggling to connect with people, I feel like a lot of that stems from that whole self-love concept. Like, being able to appreciate you for yourself and think positively about yourself, because I feel like the way that you view yourself could often translate to how you connect with other people. Does that make sense? Like, think about, like, what can I do to sort of build the connections I want? You know what I mean? I feel like framing it that way puts, like, power back into your hands, right? Rather than it feels like the world is against me. Does that make sense? Okay, let me pause to look through chat a little bit. I don't know why I'm like switching between like looking at my OBS chat and like my YouTube studio chat. Let me focus on one. Oh my gosh. But yeah, welcome to Rita's Ramble Hour. Topical mental health ramble hour. Smiling Dog says, well, in my experience, sometimes love is not just all about a relationship between two lovers, but it's also all about the same relationship with your family and friends as well. Agreed, because it's like love takes so many forms, and it feels like such a disservice to not celebrate the ways in which we show love for people and just take away that importance. You know what I mean? Like, you know, remembering to like check in on a friend, like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while, like, how have you been? Or like, you know, doing favors for like your siblings or your parents, right? Like, finding little ways that you can show them that you appreciate them, or just like little way, like, you know, giving someone like a compliment, or, you know, I don't know, I'm just like, I'm trying to think of ways that, because I feel like I've had some of my most like fulfilling, like, my moments where I'm like, I feel so loved, have been with like my two best friends, Beef and Sleepy. Like I have quite a few friends, but it's like being able to, and like I appreciate all of them, right? Like, I have moments, even with my friends who I would consider like more acquaintances, like I feel more of that like love for community. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I love that we all love the same thing, and like I love being able to bask in that, right? Our collective joy for like a fandom or something like that, right? Like I just feel so much love for that. You know what I mean? And like love for just like your fellow human. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh. But yeah, I've had some of my most like fulfilling feelings where it's like, wow, I feel so loved with like my best friends or like with my sisters. You know what I mean? I feel like it doesn't have to be romance. Yeah. I'm gonna keep scrolling up. Sorry. I went on a, not a tangent. I went along tirade, so I might have missed a couple. Oh gosh. People forget to love themselves first before putting all their attention on others. Yeah, and I feel like oftentimes when people find themselves in that situation where they're often like they're focusing so much on achieving like that ideal of romance, so much so that they're forgetting to love themselves. Again, I think it harkens back to that idea of romance being romanticized or romance being viewed as like something to be won. You know what I mean? When in actuality, I feel like that should be, as with any sort of relationship, it should be something very natural. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of people, and again, it's not just romance that people do this with. It's things like work or education, right? They tie their self-worth so closely to romance. And again, I feel like sometimes, a lot of times, this is tied to how we are like socialized, right? When it's like, you know, like even when you're younger, like people around you will be like, oh yeah, when they grow up, they're gonna be like a real like magnet. You know what I mean? Like people always talk about like things like marriage or finding a partner as like the end all be all. So like, you know, part of that is like, you know, you're almost sort of like hardwired to think like that. Not hardwired, but socialized is the word that I'm looking for. You know, like, you know, you go home for the holidays and everyone's like, so did you get a partner? Like, when are you gonna get married? You know what I mean? So I feel like a lot of times we are convinced that our self-worth is tied to romance, among other things, right? Like I said, like grades, school, work, things like that. But I feel like that's something you really have to like unlearn. You know what I mean? It's hard because, you know, I feel like me being an overachiever, I'm like, am I an overachiever because I like working or because I feel like I constantly have to achieve, right? I feel like maybe a little bit of both, but I've learned to sort of be aware of that, and then I'm like, am I doing it because I like it? Okay, yes, I am. Good. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh. But yeah, I feel like you having some sort of romantic validation is far from being the only way, and you know, you can be, I don't know. I feel like so many people feel validated once they have like a romantic partner, when that is not the case. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many other metrics about you that are what make you you, right? Like making your identity more than just one thing. You know what I mean? Like, so many people tie their identity to the relationship status, or they tie their identity to their career. They tie their identity to one thing. You know what I mean? But I feel like there's so much more to you, to your identity, to your self-worth, right? You know, maybe you're kind, maybe you're talented, maybe you're not quite there yet, but you are working on it. You know what I mean? Maybe you're trying to improve yourself, right? And that's admirable, right? There's so many other things about you that, you know, maybe someone hasn't, you know, seen in you quite yet, but, you know, maybe someday. I feel like a lot of people that you see who are like very kind and incredible and talented don't date for a long period of time. And that's okay. And there might be different reasons. Like maybe they're focusing on another thing, or maybe they don't want to date. You know what I mean? And I feel like, yeah. I don't know. I'm rambling. let me look at chat again. Yeah, a lot of the times people cite like these expectations from other people, right? And even if it's like, even if it comes from like a place of like, you know, oh, I just want to like know what's best for you. But even then, it's like, how do you know what's best for me? What's that one meme? How do you know what's best for me? Oh, gosh. No, that's what I'm saying, Bio, is you don't have to be outstanding or talented. I had mentioned earlier, like, you can be, like, trying to improve. Like, maybe you're just a chill dude. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you're just doing your own thing. You stay in your own lane. There's so many things about every person that you can find to love. I don't know. It's like, yeah. Just be yourself. Exactly. That's my opinion. Gosh. In reality, romantic relationships are not a solution. They're a responsibility, a new responsibility added to the list of responsibilities you need to fulfill. That's so real. One thing that I was thinking about the topic of the romanticization of romance was that, you know, people treat romance as a trophy to be won. I had mentioned this earlier, right? But I feel like people who sort of have this, I don't know, competitive, is that this, I guess, a way to say it, view of romance, also have a skewed idea of romance. Not only, and again, this is just from my observation, right? This may not be the case. It seems as though people also view romance in a skewed way, right? They think it's this perfect, you know, warm, fuzzy ball of goodness, and it's amazing. But in reality, you know, relationships of any kind, right, are very complex, and they require effort, and they require, you know, a lot. It's not just, you know, the end all be all, right? Like, oh, I made it. You know what I mean? Like, it's something that you constantly choose to do and put a lot of effort into it. And I feel like people who have these sorts of skewed ideas of romance, this sort of like rose-tinted view on romance, often end up in relationships that are painful, or they find themselves in pressure. They feel pressured to be in relationships that they're not ready for, which in and of itself could turn into something even worse. You know what I mean? So just being in a relationship doesn't mean you're, you know, more loved than someone else, or you're on track more than somebody else. You know what I mean? Because even then, you could end up in a relationship that's not, sorry, I hit my microphone, that's not, you know, fulfilling, right? Maybe you just rushed into it because everyone else was doing it, right? You didn't really think about who it was that you were getting into a relationship with or something. So not being in a relationship, right, doesn't mean you're unlovable. It's romantic attraction isn't the only sort of love, right? Self-love, love for your family, love for your friends, love for your community, right? Love for just humanity in general, right? Like, I think all of those can be fulfilling in their own ways. And I'm not saying like if someday you do want to find a partner in romance and things like that, that's fine. Like, you know, like everyone has their own, you know, but you really have to stop and consider if the way you're looking at romance is healthy, if that makes sense. Yeah. Let me look at the chat. Let me get caught up. I just see it's my opinion. Oh my gosh. Don't romance/job your identity. I think that at that point you're just talking about motivation/life goals, and that's a very large can of worms to open. Yeah, which is why we're kind of staying in the love aspect of him, right? Because you could apply this sort of like don't make blank your identity to many things, right? But today we're just gonna talk about love because it's around Valentine's Day, so yeah. The competitive effect that romance had on us has led people to even gamify romance. Like, what do you mean? Like, oh, I've dated this many people. Is that what you mean? Yeah. And I feel like the way that some people might view romance might also affect how they treat people. You know what I mean? Like, if you view romance as just like this game, or if you think of it as some sort of transactional, sort of competitive thing, like a trophy, like a badge that you wear, right? You know, you might end up treating the people who you end up with badly, because it's like you only think of them as a trophy or some sort of badge to wear, you know? Gosh. Okay, let me scroll through. Da-dum, ba-da-bum. Someone says, I think romance is overrated. People are just lonely and they see romance as the only solution when there are so many other alternatives. True! Yeah, I feel like... Yeah. It's like... I feel like... I think there's nothing wrong with, like, wanting to be in a romantic relationship, but it's like you really have to sit down with yourself and think, like, what am I really craving? You know what I mean? Like, you know, maybe I want to consider... I don't know, because it's like... You kind of have to think to yourself, am I wanting a romantic partner? Or am I just craving intimacy? Right? Emotional intimacy, whatever. Like... Because you could be emotionally intimate with, like, your friends, right? Like, I've had very deep conversations with my two best friends, Beef and Sleepy. And it's like, we've had, like, 3-hour, 4-hour-long conversations going late into the night. And, like, you know, we'd open up to each other about how we feel. And, you know, we'd wrap up those conversations. And I'd go to bed thinking, like, wow, I feel so seen and so heard and so understood. And it's just, like, it's such an overwhelming feeling of positive overwhelming feeling. It's like, wow, people care for me on such a deep and profound way, and that makes me feel like very like heard. I don't know how to describe it, but you know what I mean. Like, that sort of like deep connection doesn't have to just be from a romantic partner, because it's like I think it's fine to want to have different levels of connection. I think it's healthy, right? Like you can't always have, you can just have a bunch of deep, you know, relationships. You know, sometimes I have like friends that I would consider like acquaintances, or like people that I are just like, oh yeah, they're in the same like group as me, you know, we're all in the orchestra or something. Like, yeah, maybe we don't text each other or whatever, but like whenever I go to rehearsal, it's like, hey, how you doing? How are your plants that you're growing? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you know. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little cuckoo crazy to me to think about, like, romance, but also just relationships in general as, like, a game. Because it's like, it makes everything just so transactional. Like, sure, there's like a psychology to things, right? We're only human, right? There's patterns to things, right? Like, if you smile at someone and are friendly to them, they'll react nicely to you. Like, if you go up to someone and start yelling in their face, they're not gonna like you. Like, there's obviously like patterns and things that but like thinking about it like a game just takes this sort of like genuine feeling about it. And I feel like you're not really getting the fulfillment you're supposed to be getting from a relationship, romantic or otherwise. You know what I mean? Because it's like, are you fulfilling your needs as a social being? Or are you fulfilling other people's expectations for what you think you should be wanting? Does that make sense? Yeah. It's like, it's because I feel like maybe the reason why people do that is because it's like they feel like this game is what will help them feel fulfilled, right? Sorry, I ramble. This is just me. This is just a girl on the internet and her thoughts, right? Oh, gosh. Boy, oh boy, do they swear there's an advantage to be, like... Oh, like, you're saying, like, just be uninterested and she'll want to get to know you more. I don't know about the world of, like... Don't ask me about flirting and stuff. You've seen me play video games. I'll just like I'll be nice to a character, and they'll want to date me. I'm like, no, what in the world? We'll just keep this in a general conversation. If you're looking for tips on how to flirt with people, you've come to the wrong girl. I'm just gonna say that out there. Just gonna put that out there, okay? This is not the stream you should be in right now. Oh my gosh. I'm just being honest. I'm just setting the expectation here. Oh, so funny. Rita's not that kind of girl. I don't think I'm qualified to teach that. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Goodness gracious. So, back to the topic at hand. I've been kind of rambling a little bit. So I'll kind of open it up a little bit. What sort of topics have been on your mind? I guess, or if you have any sort of addendums to what has been said already, or if you have any concerns, or if you have anything that you're like, you know, I disagree with something that you mentioned, or something that you mentioned like confused me. Like, this is an open conversation. I'm just a girl with thoughts, so I don't know. I'm here. I'm just spitting them out as they come to me, as they run themselves through my head. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I don't know. I feel very strongly about it because it really upsets me seeing people who are genuinely just so amazing and so wonderful feel like they're not loved because they don't have a romantic partner. Do you believe that self-care just wasn't taught enough? Self-care / self-love. That could potentially be a part of it, right? I think there's just so much emphasis on achievement sometimes. And maybe that's just how I grew up. I don't know if people grew up the same way. But I feel like I struggled a lot with self-care. And I don't just mean like spa day. I mean like actually taking care of myself. Because I feel like and you know, just in general, right? Like not just within my immediate family, but like in general, society in general. And it was never really emphasized to me that like health as well. You know what I mean? Like it was always like, you know, seeing it in movies and TV and things like that and not really getting any sort of reassurance from the people in my life. And I'm not trying to like blame people, you know what I mean? Because it's like they also were raised that way, right? And so it's like maybe that's not something that they grew up with, right? I'm not trying to blame the world, right? But you know, I feel like growing up, it just wasn't really like emphasized for me. Like, oh, but what was emphasized is like getting good grades, and you know, whatchamacallit, getting good grades, or like getting into like a really good school, or eventually getting a really awesome job, or sorry, a really well-paying job, I guess is what would be considered awesome by general society standards, right? Gosh. So I feel like, you know, because for me it was like, I often thought of like success as a game, right? Because when I was younger, and I often like burnt myself out, you know, trying to achieve. And whenever I like didn't quite meet that goal, I'd be like, oh, I guess I'm just not a hard worker. Or like, I guess I'm just not like I don't know, like I guess it's similar to how like if you don't meet the societal standards of romance or relationships, you kind of think of yourself as unlovable. On the flip side, it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm just like not working hard enough. You know, it's like, or maybe I'm just like not as like skilled or talented as I think I am. You know what I mean? But that was definitely not the case. And then I feel like my view of myself suffered at that, you know? Because in my head it was like gamified, almost. Or there was so much emphasis I put on success that, like, because again, it's like it's kind of pushed onto you out of a place of like, oh, well, I just want to make sure that you're okay. You know, I just want to make sure, I'm just looking out for you. But in reality, it's like, you can't be talking about like things like romance or career or things like that. You can't be talking about it like that. Otherwise, it's like people will place way too much emphasis on it. And how do we change that, right? It's like, it starts like in places like this, right? You kind of have to, you just talk about it more, right? Because that's how things change in the world. You can't change things overnight, right? You can't blame one person or a bunch of individuals. Like, you can't blame the world, right? But you can change it. I want to change the world bit by bit, right? I'm not trying to change the very fabric of the universe overnight, right? But, you know, by having these conversations, I can remind myself, you know, to unlearn things. I can remind you all, you know, we can remind each other and, you know, be there for one another and sort of unlearn these things. Do you feel guilty looking after yourself? Sometimes. Like, that's something I still have to unlearn. Because the thing is like, you can develop a toolbox, and some days you'll be really good at using that toolbox, and some days you won't. And that's just how it is, you know? And that's why you have to keep adding to your toolbox, right? The conversation about normalizing mental health doesn't just stop one day. You go to a conference, oh yeah, mental health problems cured, I'm good to go. It's something you're always working on. So, do I feel guilty about looking after myself? Broadly, generally speaking, definitely not as much as I used to. I think, you know, I understand the importance of self-care and looking after myself, but do I find myself sometimes like slipping up and being like, oh, you know, I could be working on something, but like, I just want to lay around and do nothing. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, I didn't get much sleep last night, so maybe I should let myself rest or something like that. You know what I mean? So I've definitely felt that, you know, every once in a while, even though I've sort of built up this toolbox over time. But what building up my toolbox has done is that it's made it easier for me to catch those thoughts, those sort of stray thoughts, and be like, hey, no, don't do that. You know what I mean? I feel that modern standards are very high. It can be hard to meet one's own standards. Your own standards. How does one learn to love oneself in such a case? I feel like where I would start, if that were the case for me about something, I would be like, is this a standard I'd set for myself because of some sort of intrinsic motivation? Or is it a standard I've set for myself because of an extrinsic factor? Like, do I have the standard for myself because I view myself as a certain way, and other people who are sort of like similar to this image I've built that I want to be like are like that? You know what I mean? Or like, is this standard there because it's like, oh, this is the sort of like, it's hard to do that too, to sort of really understand if it's like a standard that you set for yourself because you're motivated by what other people think versus what you think. It's hard, but I feel like that's the first thing I would do, right? Like, trying to think of an example. I'm really bad at thinking of examples on the spot, but that's where I would start. Is if that standard is realistic and, you know, graceful to me. You know, like, am I setting myself up for failure? Or is this genuinely something I really want to work towards or maintain? That's the first thing. How does one learn to love oneself in such a case? A lot of it is like, for me at least, right? Maybe it's different for someone else. A lot of it for me is sort of like training my mindset. And I feel like that's a lot of why I love doing stuff like this, because it's like, what that looks like for me is like talking about it or reading or having to, like, I kind of, like, you have to sort of remind yourself, right? Like how you would learn to do anything, like any other skill. You have to practice it. You got to learn about it and you got to practice it. And the thing about that I've sort of had to learn and maintain and practice is that growth isn't linear, or being a certain way isn't like linear. You know what I mean? Like, you can learn to, I feel like part of that is like giving yourself grace in that, like, you're never gonna be the same thing for the rest of your life. Does that make sense? It's like, you're never gonna be hitting that standard all the time. And I feel like grace is such an important part about learning to love yourself and giving yourself that grace. Does that make sense? Because it's like, you can't expect yourself to go 100% all the time. You know what I mean? And it's like giving yourself grace to be able to love yourself even when you're not at your 100%. Because you shouldn't have to only be loved at your 100%. You know what I mean? What's that one meme where it's like, if they don't love me at blank, then if they don't love me at blank, they don't deserve me at blank. Similar thing. Whether or not you are at, 100%, 120%, or 10%, that, you doesn't mean you shouldn't love yourself. Does that make sense? Yeah. Sorry, I spent a lot of time on that one. I hope that sort of, I don't know, jogged your thought process a little bit, Ludacil. It's just my observation that people were too passive about teaching self-love. It really depends on how you express it. To treating yourself maybe seen as selfish. Real! And I feel like maybe that it depends also like on sort of what culture you grew up in. If it's more like individualistic or if it's more like collective, if that makes sense. And I feel like, being like, hey guys, sorry, I'm not like feeling 100%. Like I need to, focus. I need to like take care of myself or focus on myself. It's like, oh, well, that's selfish of you. You know what I mean? I can sympathize with that. I can understand, because I feel like I've also experienced that too. It feels like focusing on yourself sometimes feels selfish. But it shouldn't. Like, what's that one sort of not anecdote, not allegory. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But it's like, you can't expect to... Oh, here we go. It's like, it's how, like, you can't put someone else's oxygen mask on first. Like, you gotta put yours on first. Right? You can't be driving people around in your car if your car is about to destroy itself. I don't know what I was trying to say. Right? I feel like you can't really take care of other people or, show love to other people if, like, your car is falling apart. You know what I mean? Like, oh gosh. As much as we're often told that, like, focusing on yourself, because there's a line between making sure that you're okay before you help other people and being selfish. Because it's like, there is a clear distinction, right? But, I don't know. I don't know. I'm thinking about it now because you brought it up. Good stuff. Good stuff. I agree. I feel like treating relationships as a game does feel very devoid of empathy. And I feel like it removes a lot of what makes relationships great, right? Like being able to connect with somebody on an emotional level. Like, isn't that the whole point of what a relationship is? Romantic or otherwise? Because they view as relationship as like a very literal thing. Like, I have a relation to this person. Like, we are friends, or we are coworkers, or, we're siblings or something like that. Like, they treat the word relationship as someone I have a relation with, rather than like someone that I can connect with on an emotional level. Oh. I'm still scrolling through. Sorry, I'm getting caught up. So you're just gonna get a few seconds of me going. I want to make sure I touch up on some stuff that I feel like I can. If I don't mention a message, I'm probably not actively ignoring you. It's just like I'm trying to pick ones that I feel like I can give a meaningful comment on. Because some of the like questions and things that you bring up are like, I feel like I feel you, right? I see you, I hear you, but it's like I don't know what else I would say aside from like, yeah, like because it's like I want to think more about it. So I guess because somebody said, for me, it's like, I know I have a lot of good qualities and I appreciate them, but I've been finding self-love so hard lately because I can see how my lack of drive has held me back in so many ways. And I like feel that. I've definitely felt that before. And I'm like trying to think of, sometimes, can I just tangent real quickly? I watched this wonderful TED Talk? I think it was just a talk about the difference between empathy and sympathy. And like, it was so powerful to me because I think we can all kind of relate to this where, you know, someone's sort of going through something or expressing an emotion. And we as people, right, we want to like help other people. We want to like solve things. And I feel like we often feel so uncomfortable to not offer some sort of like, you know, word of advice or like a solution and things like that. But sometimes, or oftentimes, if not always, there's value in just sitting there and being like, yes, I know what that feels like. Like I hear you, I see you. I'm like, you know, you're very valid to feel that way. And what I took away from that was like, oftentimes we don't feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable with people like that. I actually wrote down notes. Wait, let me. I don't know who I was talking to, but I was telling them, I was like, oh yeah, I watched a TED Talk the other day, and they're like, you just watch TED Talks? I'm like, yeah. I feel like that's part of my sort of like my mental health upkeep that I do, because I don't watch them like every day, but like every once in a while, I'm like, this is a topic that I'm thinking about, and I want to see what other people have to think about that, you know? And it's not that I can't think on my own, but sometimes it's hard for us if we're in the thick of it, right? If we're lost in the sauce, it's hard for us to think about it in a more logical way, right? Because you're so upset or whatever. Let me get my notes on it. Let's see. I wrote down, this is The Power of Vulnerability by Dr. I think Bren is how you pronounce her name. Brene Brown. And she was saying empathy is feeling with people, whereas sympathy is feeling for you. Yeah. It's like empathy is a choice. I wrote down some of the quotes. Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice. In order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling, right? So maybe it's like you don't have that same experience, but it's like being able to find one of your own experiences that allows you to connect with someone and how they're feeling in their moment. And it's scary and it's very vulnerable, but like she had mentioned in her talk that sympathy is often how we respond to people when we don't want to be vulnerable to someone else's struggle. And I thought that was really powerful. Yeah. Because I feel like whenever we are faced with, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? I think that's a beautiful thing about how we are as people. But oftentimes when we are, whatchamacallit? Oftentimes when we are faced with very difficult emotions and conversations, our immediate reaction is to try to make things better, right? And like that's just a very human thing, right? Wanting to help other people and wanting to you don't want to see them suffer, right? And so the first instinct that you have is like, I want to fix it, right? But it's like, for me, it's like, rather than trying to fix something in the moment, right? Because oftentimes there's not really anything you can do to fix a problem in that moment, right? There's gonna be so many things you need to do to fix a big problem. But what you can do in that moment, right, is to help them feel seen, right, and heard. Like, oh my gosh, like, that's like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I'm glad you told me, like, I'm here for you. Like, what can I do for you? Like, you know, if you tell me what happened or things like that. Like, because like I mentioned, like, rarely can you do something in that moment to fix it. But what you can do is help someone feel heard or seen or feel connected to you. 14 years ago? Really? I found it... I don't want to give anything away. I was researching something, actually. And so I was searching up, like, blank talk. And then that's how I found it. But it's for... I may or may not be writing a thing for a project. And that's why I searched up. This was not one of my random TED Talk searches. There was a reason why I searched it up. Oh my gosh. But yeah, the power of vulnerability. Okay. Sorry, tangent over. Scrolling back now. But yeah, I wanted to kind of go back to how you feel like you've held yourself back in so many ways because of like a lack of drive or whatever reason. It kind of like reminds me of when we were playing Finding Paradise, and throughout it I just felt so like, because the main character in Finding Paradise, he didn't feel fulfilled in life because he had so many regrets. And these various regrets were like, oh, I wasn't able to land my plane because he's a pilot. I didn't land my plane properly on my last flight, or like I missed the birth of my child, or like, well, he was there eventually, but he missed like the moment, right? Or like he felt like he messed up his like first honeymoon date or whatever. He like hired the wrong guy for his proposal, like skywriting, things like that. And, you know, he just felt like, these are things I regret. And like, I'm mad at myself for not having done these well, or I could have done those better. But he eventually was able to realize like, sure, maybe in the moment I would have wanted things to be different, or like even looking back at it and looking at those things in isolation as like, I could have done this better. But if you look at it in a bigger picture, it's like everything that I have gone through, everything that I did is part of how I was able to be here today. And he has like a fulfilling marriage with his wife, and he has a kid that they love very much. And, you know, him focusing so much on like what he could have done or what he wasn't able to do took away from the other joys in his life. And you know, the fact that he really was like happy and content with his life. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like, because I feel like I have similar feelings as well. It's like, oh, I should have done this. Like I could have done that, right? Like, oh, if only I had enough grit, you know, I would have been able to keep pushing. But it's like, you also have to think about it this way. Like, is it like you didn't have enough grit to do this or that, or is it like I was able to give myself time to, you know, recover or rest, or give myself the space that I needed to grow, or like, I don't know. It's just like everyone has their own schedule. Everyone has their own journey. Everyone's different in what they need and what they require. And, you know, like for me too, because it's like I have oftentimes think like, oh, if I could just stick it out a bit more, if only like I had a bit more tenacity, if I could have really grinded it out or whatever. But then I really take time to think back and look at the bigger picture. And I think to myself, if I had done that, would I feel because I would be burnt out right now. You know what I mean? Would I feel as strongly about what I do right now because, you know, I would have been burnt out kind of thing. You know, if I had really put the pedal to the metal, would I have all these really fulfilling relationships with like my friends and my sisters? You know what I mean? Like maybe I wouldn't have had as much time to spend time with them or really invest in those relationships. And it's hard to do that sometimes, especially when you have such a nagging feeling in your head about that specific thing. It's like you get hyper focused on that, you know? And it's hard to do, but it really helps when you kind of like, again, give yourself some grace, be kind to yourself, and look at the bigger picture, right? Again, I'm telling you, it's hard to do because I often find myself feeling the same way. Yara, thank you so much for celebrating your membership anniversary. Everyone does need self-love regardless of relationship status, and it's a healthy topic to discuss with anyone. Agree. But yeah, I hope that was sort of in the ballpark. I feel like I kind of went on a tangent there, but... I'm scrolling up to see if there's anything else that I can speak on. there's like a couple of like questions and things like that, but I'm like, I think it was part of a conversation or a topic, a subtopic that I had mentioned earlier. So I'm kind of like not sure to which subtopic some of these questions and comments are referring to. Sorry, I tangent a lot. I apologize. Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I feel like there's things that we've brought up now that I wasn't sort of thinking about going into this. But yeah. You like the tangents? Yeah, I mean, that's the appeal of what a Rita stream, right? I feel like once I like latch onto a specific subtopic, I just go. And like, I can't stop talking about it. Here's a fun little interlude while I sort of think about what else I wanted to talk about. I did take notes beforehand, because even though I took a mental health day yesterday and couldn't finish up my presentation, I did think about, whatchamacallit. I did think about some of the topics that I wanted to talk about today. And let me pull those up. But what I wanted to ask you all is, what's something that you love about yourself? And it doesn't have to be something super big and crazy, like I am the CEO of every single company in the world. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, one thing that I like about myself. Oh, I had to pick just one. that's self right there. I'm trying to think of like something that I wouldn't often bring up. You know, because like there's things that I like about myself that I think about a lot. You know, like I think I'm a very talented person. I think I would like to think I'm a nice person, right? I'm sociable, but I feel like that's like the very common outward things that I talk about. So, gosh, and don't feel like narcissistic just by pointing out something that you like about yourselves. Isn't that weird? Like, I mean, obviously there is something that exists that is called narcissism, right? But appreciating your strengths and what you're good at is not narcissism. Obviously, maybe in some contexts, it's like if that's the only thing you think about, right? That's not that. That's a whole other can of worms. But just being able to appreciate yourself and call it out, you know, in a moment like this I don't think is, you know, narcissistic. Stuart, welcome backstage as Idol Manager. I hope you enjoy your time. It's honestly hard to mention something about yourself. You're boring? No! Nara, do you remember when you helped me choose Pyra instead of Mithra? Oh my gosh. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. About you. How's that? Oh my gosh. No! You're not boring! I think maybe that's just how we view ourselves, because honestly sometimes I feel like I'm boring too, but it's like sometimes you just have to like, because again, you can't always be thinking about yourself in terms of like external validation, right? Like you've got to be able to find that validation from within, right? You have to find that intrinsic love for yourself. You can't just be basing how you love yourself by how other people love you. But sometimes you just got to be reminded of like, you know, because sometimes you get in your own head and like you sort of block yourself from being able to see the good in yourself because you're thinking so much about other things. So sometimes it's you gotta remind yourself. You have to let other people remind you, and that's why I like to like, you know, tell my friends like, oh, I love spending time with you guys. Like, oh, you're so funny. You know what I mean? But I think something that I like about myself that I feel like isn't as outward. Or like isn't as obvious, I guess, because I feel like there's a lot of other things that I could easily say, right? Like I think I sing well, you know, I feel like I'm very positive, right? But I can be resourceful. How's that? I can make it work. You know, I can make things work. Right? I can find a way to get something done. When I really put the pedal to the metal. Let's see. You like that you're putting more time into learning new things like dancing and drawing? I love that! Self-improvement. Someone says I'm okay at a lot of things. That's awesome, though! Jack of all trades, right? What is it? Jack of all trades. Something, because what's the full thing about the master of none, but da-da-da-da. Okay, hold on. But better than something. Okay, the whole proverb. I'm searching it up right now. It is Jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. There you go. Oh my gosh. You love how extroverted you can be. Yeah! Like being, you know, not being afraid to be outgoing and reaching out to people. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. I love that. I haven't really heard of like that sort of saying. I like that. I'm gonna put that in my pocket. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. You're very good at intuiting solutions to problems quickly. Yeah, see? That's cool. I am or can be a jack of all trades. Yeah, and I feel like, especially like in modern times when everyone is like specializing in things, and that's not a bad thing, right? Like that's, but I feel like there's so much emphasis on like, you gotta pick one thing. I feel like oftentimes we forget that like, it's also cool to be a jack of all trades. For you, you just sit there and listen. You may not respond or interact that much, but to whoever's speaking, they have your full attention. See, yeah, being like attentive and being careful in that way. Yeah. You like that you're passionate about music and Xenoblade. You're so real. You're so real for both of those things, right? Like being able to appreciate music on a deeper level and being able to have that intense appreciation for it. I like that those younger than me can talk to me if they feel the need to. Yeah, like being a trusted like adult or being a trusted individual in general. That's definitely something to be, you know, to feel fulfilled by. That people look up to you and value your opinions or feel, you know, safe enough to talk about things, you know, with you. That they trust their thoughts with you. You're only boring to yourself. Oh my gosh, what is with these bars? Oh my gosh. You're only boring to yourself because you spend the most time with yourself. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm picking up so many like good like little bits of wisdom from you. Put that one in my pocket too. Gosh. You feel like you've been reaching out to friends more and been socializing more than ever. Yay! That's awesome! I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. Both trying new things and driving my friends to try new things. I love that! Aww! Oh my gosh. I love that. That's great. I'm really happy for you. Sorry, I know I just repeated myself, but like, sometimes if I feel something struggling, I'll just keep saying it. If you couldn't tell already, I'm very much a words of affirmation person. So oftentimes, I express my joy by just repeating, I'm happy! I remember one time, like, I was hanging out with friends, and I just kept being like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here. Like, thank you, guys. And one of them was like, I don't know, guys. I think Rita's happy. So funny. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling Rita's really enjoying herself. Oh my gosh. Let's see. I'm gonna turn my fan on. I'm really good at forging gems in Xenoblade Chronicles 1. That's something to be really like proud of, because I don't think I can do that. I don't think I fully understood gem crafting. Don't tell the other Xenoblade fans that hey, I can enjoy the game in my own way, right? I think my fan is too loud. I still feel like that's too loud. Oh gosh. It's okay. My comfort is very important. I'm adjusting it. Maybe if I put it over here. Yeah, it's better. Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Let's see. You think you're decent at teaching people, whether it's helping them learn how something works on the job or in video games. Oh yeah! That's a really awesome skill. Because I think you can be good at something, but it takes a totally different skill to be able to teach it to someone. I think teaching is a skill in and of itself. Yeah. You're very thorough and catch things that others miss. See, that's cool, because like I can be so like unaware sometimes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Sometimes people think they're boring, but that is based on external social feedback you experience from others. Once you find the right people... So real! Once you find your people, you'll realize you aren't boring. Absolutely. Absolutely. Agreed. You're very proud of a sketch of Pyra you made. Oh my gosh. See, like, being artistic and having, like, an artistic sort of, like, vision is something you can appreciate about yourself. Love for music. Very good. You're very good at finding information when you're looking for it. Oh, real. Real. Yeah, this is self-love. This is what self-love's all about. And talking to people so far, you've heard that you're a unique and interesting person. But saying that about yourself feels like boasting. No, I feel you! It like, well, it's like just being like, oh, I'm unique. You know, it's like even I feel that, but it's like, you know, you gotta be able to appreciate yourself. Obviously, it's like if there's instances where it's like, you gotta like read the room, right? Time and place. But it's like, that's the case for anything, right? But yeah, I think, you know, every once in a while, just being able to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, yeah, I'm proud of who I am or where I'm at or what I'm trying to do. Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel like I fully understand gem crafting. Yeah. Right there with you. Nara, thank you so much for celebrating your membership anniversary. You reminded me that choice we made, between Pyra and Mithra was a good highlight of 2024 and actually finishing Xenoblade 2 overall for you at the time. Yay! Xenoblade! Oh my gosh. Hello, welcome, welcome. Long time no see. Just popping in to say hi and wish you well. Still so happy you played Jellycorn before. Yeah! It was so fun. Wishing you a lovely day. Thank you. You as well. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah. Absolute Link says, oh, sorry. You, sometimes I'm like, do I say you? Do I say I? You said that you love yourself for being very principled and loyal. That's two very awesome things. Yeah. Of course, of course. Two very wonderful things to love about yourself. I think the concept of boring is a good thing because it means you're stable. True! Like, I feel like a lot of the times you just have to, like, reframe how you think about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. The first steps to self-love. Yeah. Because it's like, you know, even though... Like, I mentioned this before, like, being able to, like, work on your mental health. It's a very similar to, like, exercising for physical health. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just, you know, work out, get to the point that you like, and then stop. Right? You have to maintain it. You have to keep working on it. It's not just gonna stay the same way once you get there. You have to keep working on it. And I feel like a lot of people look at that and think like, oh gosh, I'm going back. Oh, I'm falling back to like, oh, I thought I grew and now I'm like, now I'm not where I wanted to be anymore. But it's like, that's the case with anything, right? You have to keep working on it or else you lose it, right? No, don't get me tangenting about Xenoblade. Oh my gosh. I think if Torto was played more before that choice, it was originally intended, more people would pick Mithra. I mean, well, yeah, because you would have just finished a chapter all about Mithra. You know what I mean? Would you say the same if we also got a chapter completely dedicated to Pyra? You know what I mean? I feel like in that case, because now then Mithra was like fresh on your mind. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh. I don't know. I only picked Pyra because like that was like the first person that I truly read. Because that's like, you met her first. I'm not about to go into a tangent about this. I think to each their own. Whoever you feel more, that you resonate more with. Get it? Because they're core crystals. Anyway. Oh. Don't remind me how bad I am on maintaining a workout. Same. So same. I feel you. We gotta at least have one Xenoblade mention this stream. That's like my 5th one! Gosh. You'd say your strength is being caring. Oh. But it's also my weakness too, because you care too much about, to the point you neglect yourself sometimes. This actually goes back to the conversation we were having earlier about like, what was the sort of thing that I mentioned earlier? If you have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you put an oxygen mask on someone else. And again, because I feel like, and this is me talking from my experience, it's like growing up, there was always so much emphasis on like achieving and, you know, what you can do for other people. That it's like, I feel like growing up, I was never given any emphasis on like, but, you know, make sure you take it easy, make sure you don't burn out, things like that. So I feel you. And that's definitely something I'm sure I'm still unlearning. Yeah. Practicing physical exercise is easy to know what to do. True, because it's like you can just search up like exercise, workout, video, right? But what can we actively do for mental exercise? I can share with you what I do to take care of my mental, sort of like my, you know, usual mental health exercises, right? It's not like push-ups and things like that. Well, the thing is though, like exercising for me sometimes can be very helpful in like clearing my head. Like if I get too much in my head, in my own head, I'll be like, okay, I'll go on a run, and like it'll help me clear my head, and I can kind of just like lock in. Well, but let me go to non-physical exercises. Journaling. I write down my feelings, because it's like sometimes it's like I feel so overwhelmed by a very strong negative feeling that, and like if I don't take the time to really understand that feeling, it just gets worse and worse, and it spirals, and it's like I can't even do anything about it. You know what I mean? Because it's like I can't fully understand it until I write it down, right? Until I sit down with myself and ask myself questions like, why do I feel this way? What is this feeling? What is that voice in my head saying, right? Like, you know, am I ashamed of myself for something? Like, do I feel bad about something? Like, do I feel anxious about something? Why do I feel anxious about something? Like, is it something that I did? Is it something that happened? And then once I sat down and asked myself those questions and really unravel that sort of like uncomfortable feeling, right? Because it goes from uncomfortable feeling, vague, amorphous, uncomfortable feeling, to a tangible problem issue that I can then do some sort of tangible solution, right? Whether that's doing something to solve it or change the situation, or be able to have like positive self-talk with, if it's something that's not as tangible. You know what I mean? Welcome, Mr. Aegis. Oh my gosh. You talk about self-talk with your students. The science of this is pretty important. The stories you tell yourself about yourself significantly impact your thought patterns. Absolutely. And I mentioned this before about your mindset and like reframing the way that you not only view yourself, but also the world around you. Oftentimes, you know, you talk about things like affirmations and things like that. And it does, like, you might feel silly being like, you are loved. You are, but if you really think about it, that's essentially like how you are raised, right? How you're socialized. People tell you all these things about who you are, you know, what the world is like, and that slowly over time sort of molds your brain in a certain way, right? And I feel like the only way to undo that is to, or unlearn some of those things, is to constantly retrain your brain, right? It's like that one Nintendo game that's like brain games. You know what I'm talking about? Where they like age your brain or something. I don't know why I thought about that, but it's like it's like mental exercises, right? Because it's like you're almost like retraining how you think. And there's only so many ways you can do that. You can't like do 10 push-ups and then all of a sudden you have a better outlook on life. You know what I mean? But it's like, for me, what I do, I mentioned this earlier, like I will listen to talks, right? Like if I have trouble being able to tell myself that, or be allowing myself to see a bigger picture, if I can't do that, right? If I'm so stuck in my own head that I can't see the bigger picture of what I'm thinking about, I'll go watch a TED Talk on imposter syndrome, or like, you know, anxiety or something like that. And, you know, and I feel like that's what therapy is too, right? Like talk therapy, like going to see a therapist and things like that. But we had mentioned things like financial barriers. We mentioned things like, maybe you have trauma about therapy itself, and that's not something you're quite ready yet for. You know what I mean? There's plenty of ways that you can, do self-help, or maybe you're getting ready to see a therapist, or you're waiting to see a therapist, whether it's like an availability or a financial barrier. There's plenty of things you can do to start retraining your brain. You know what I mean? Our memories also rely on narrative storytelling, so negative self-talk literally gaslights yourself about your own past actions. You remember yourself worse than you were. Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. For sure. Gosh. Do you still have / make more notes in the positivity jar? Sorry, I'm getting caught up because I kind of rambled a bit. I'm trying to get caught up. Don't let those cringe memories win. Real! I've heard so many funny stories of how people do their affirmations. And it's like... Because, affirmations don't have to look a certain way. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have to just be, looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, I am a beautiful person. And then, that can be how it is. If that works for you, that works for you. But one way I saw somebody do it is, they often... Yeah, cringe is dead. What's that? Oh my god, let me see if I have that meme. It was like, you thought it was cringe, I thought it was fun, and that's why I'm happier. And, I bookmarked it because I was like, yeah, year of whimsy. I'm gonna pull it up right now. But anyway, back to what I was saying. If that's the sort of self-talk that works for you, then that works for you. Right? But if not, you find ways that are convincing to you. Because for someone, it might feel not genuine. But for someone else, that might truly be how they feel on the inside. You know what I mean? So one way I saw somebody do it was they often found themselves, whenever they messed something up, they'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm so clumsy. I'm the world's biggest klutz or whatever. And it was almost like a instinctive reaction for them. And so the way that they were going to start retraining themselves was instead of, because they always had to say something. They always had to comment on something that they did. The way that they started off was by, even though it was a little deprecating, they would change it, or the comment, making a comment was supposed to be deprecating or whatever. They would do this thing where they would sarcastically say something nice about themselves, right? So if they painted something that they weren't particularly happy with, instead of being like, oh, you're the worst painter in the world, they'd go, oh, look at what's Picasso's full name? Is it Pablo? I don't know. Look at Picasso over here. Oh, look at Da Vinci over here. You know what I mean? They started off that way, so at least they could start transitioning out of saying actually deprecating things about themselves to turning it into something more positive. It is Pablo Picasso. Okay, cool. And Leonardo da Vinci. I'm trying to find the picture because the one where it was hold on. I'm going through my bookmarks and there's something funny that I saw. I'm gonna send it to Shiny because it has to do with Grisco girls. Let me explain it to you. It's a picture of Sonic the Hedgehog, and he's wearing headphones, and it's what are those pictures where it's there's little moving images and things like that, and it's there's a sparkly heart and stars animations, and there's a moving text that says crazy, and in the corner it says crazy La Seraphim. So it looks like Sonic posted a story with crazy La Seraphim, the song Crazy by La Seraphim playing. So I'm trying to find that post I was talking about earlier, the one thing where it's you thought it was cringe, I thought it was fun, and that's why I'm happier than you. Because we were talking about not letting those cringe negative thoughts win or something. Act like a Grisco, dressed like girly. Man, I can't find it! But I saw that and I was like, wait, I love that. I'm gonna take that as an affirmation. You know what I mean? But anyway, what was I talking about? Crazy that this stream is better talking and learning about self-care than the psychology class. No, because I think a big part of my sort of routine of self-care is talking about things like this with people. And it's because in my head, it's what it teaches me is oh, okay, I'm not the only one who feels that way. You know what I mean? And, maybe someone else will also feel that way too. How did you find it, Shiny? Oh my gosh. Oh, you found like a text post. I saw like it was like a photo of like a person with like the text on it. You found it cringe. I found it funny. That's why I'm happier than you. Real. So real. No. Nice. What were we talking about? Back to ways that you can like retrain your brain, right? Your mental exercises. Ways that you can include affirmations, or what are ways you can do mental exercises. So I mentioned how that one person sort of found their own way of retraining their brain and how they talk to themselves. Self-talk. I think Mr. E just brought it up. The whole idea of self-talk. How do you talk to yourself? So the way that they were talking to themselves was very like... I've had another version of the you found it cringe meme. Thank you, Shiny, for sending it to me. I actually said I saw an image that Shiny found. Sorry. I keep shorthanding what I want to say. Gosh. Let me put it here for you all to see. So we all can have it be part of our not manifestation, our affirmations for the day. You know what I mean? Let me find it. Oh, I have to save it? What the? Open in browser. Is this... I'm not really good with celebrities. Is this Lindsay Lohan? I'm so bad. I'm really bad with celebrities. I'm not like a... I feel like I recognize voices better than I... Like, seiyus and stuff than I recognize faces. So I apologize. Let me... I'm trying to put it into my OBS. Today's affirmation. It's a little, like, cheeky. But, you know, I think it's cute. Yeah. Shiny did this? I did this. Real. There you go. Right there. Oh my gosh. You found it cringe. I found it fun. Real, though. Real. Yeah. Anyway. Anyway. What were we talking about? Self-talk. You know, how to exercise your brain. So what I wanted to talk about, aside from journaling, is I also watch, like, TED Talks and things like that. Because, again, sometimes it's like, if I can't have that conversation myself, if I find it too difficult to be able to have that conversation with myself because I either don't know too much about that topic, I haven't experienced it before, or like I'm just too in my own thoughts to really be able to step back and look at things the big picture. I listen to somebody else who can do it for me. You know what I mean? And like, again, that's the sort of like the whole foundation of like what therapy is, right? It's like if you can't process your feelings by yourself, it's like you can have someone help you do that, right? Yeah. So, like, I'll search up, like, oh, how to deal with... I mentioned, like, imposter syndrome was one. Like, it's like, oh, you know what? I didn't think about that. Think about it that way. Or, like, you know, I had a hard time thinking about it that way. And having someone to remind you to do that is helpful. Yeah. You found it cringe. I found it fun. That's why I'm happier than you. But, yeah. Well, anything else that's on your mind regarding the topic? We've had a lot of really good, conversations today. I want to shout out to Write Love on Her Arms once again for you know, giving me an idea to talk about self-love and just love aside from romance. Yeah. So and like I mentioned before, if you do feel inclined to help support to Write Love on Her Arms' mission to spread hope and love in our community, whether it's through their resource toolkit or investing in the classroom and normalizing mental health conversations, or helping to get rid of financial barriers for folks, or honestly helping grow the movement through connecting people with resources and, you know, creating spaces in our community to talk and normalize conversations. If you feel so inclined, if you're able to, don't feel pressured to do so. You can find the campaign link for their yearly Valentines. Does it have to suck? 2025. I hope this was a helpful conversation for you all. We talked a lot. I rambled a lot, but you know, in a world where, you know, in games and anime and movies and things like that, oftentimes so many of them are focused on like getting the romantic partner of your dreams, or like, you know, shows and things like that put way more emphasis on, you know, romantic love as an achievement rather than like feeling genuinely fulfilled by all sorts of relationships. I feel like having conversations like this can be helpful for, you know, our community. And then maybe you all can affect other people, who can affect other people, who can affect other people. You know what I mean? And like even if it's just one person who was able to take something away and feel a little bit, you know, like I'm on the right track, or like feel a little bit more, like a little bit less upset. I don't know how to phrase it, I guess. It was nice, and it's nice if something bad happens, you can come back and listen to this to get back up real. And like I've said, like I do that with TED Talks and things like that, like if I just need a friendly reminder. Because it's like you are raised a certain way, and it's hard to unlearn things because you're so used to, you know, you're so used to sayings and how things are, because that's how people tell you how things are, right? Growing up, it's hard to unlearn those things, and you kind of have to drill it in your head over and over again that the world isn't like this, right? The reality is not romance is the only thing that can give you fulfillment, right? That's not the reality. But a lot of us were raised that way, you know, whether it's through the people around you because that's how they were raised, or like how things are portrayed in social media and things like that. And so really what you can do is start to try to unlearn that. And one way you can unlearn that is to learn a different sort of mindset, the same way that you were socialized to the other way, you know, at first, right? Talking about and normalizing the fact that love can come from so many places, right? From so many different kinds of people. Yeah. Because it's like I have this like love for my community and for just people in general, right? And because I have that love, I do things like I talk about this, right? You know, being vulnerable isn't easy, and you know, being like putting yourself as like the center of like difficult conversations like this isn't easy. It takes a lot of like emotional energy, right? But I have so much love and appreciation for all the people in my life who have helped me through really difficult times, that out of love for these people, whether it's like people I know, like friends and family, or like random strangers who, you know, took a chance on me or helped me out, you know, out of love for those people, I do things like this. And that's like how I don't know, and it's a very fulfilling experience for me, and that's why I do it, right? Now people are gonna be like, Rita only says nice things because it makes her feel good. You know what? Yeah, it does, right? Because, you know, again, like I have the love that I have for people in general, and yeah, I don't know. I that's also a sort of love that I find fulfillment from, right? Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of getting like very philosophical now. Being nice feels nice, right? People always try to like vilify, like, oh, you're just doing something because it makes you feel good. I mean, yeah, that's better than like doing bad things because it makes you feel. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, oh, your kindness is so performative because you're only doing it to be nice. But it's like, kindness is an action. You know what I mean? Like, it should make you feel good. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh. Rita only sleeps because she wants to feel well rested. That's crazy. Oh my gosh. Oh my my gosh. Rita only eats because she's hungry. That's crazy. Oh my gosh. Yeah. If doing things didn't make us feel good, there'd be a lot less good things in the world. Exactly! Like, it's like, obviously, because it's like, I think we're misassociating people who do nice things just to, like, I don't know, like, get it. I don't know, it's like, it's like, it'd be different if it's like you're only doing nice things because you're gonna do a bad thing later. You know what I mean? But it's like you're doing nice things because it's like you want people to treat you nicely too. Like, okay, like, you know what I mean? Like, is that so bad? You know what I mean? Like, it'd be different if it's like you were only treating someone nicely because you're gonna turn around and like stab them in the back or something, or like, but it's like you do nice things for someone because they could also do nice things for you too. It's like we lift each other up? Question mark? I don't know. Like, maybe I just haven't experienced what these people are talking about, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, I would hope that being nice makes you feel good. I don't know. You treat people how you want to be treated is how I think of it. Maybe, gosh. That, or they think, oh, you're only doing nice things because you want something in return. I mean, I guess, like, because I feel like that's how I talk about kindness when people who... And I'm not trying to, like, you know, make a judgment call on people. But, like, for some people, it's a little bit more difficult to convince someone to think about the good, like, the altruism in people. You know what I mean? It's like I would, like, it's kind of similar to how, like, I was talking to someone about, like, why should we... Because I was like, yeah, because I was having a business conversation with someone, like in a learning and an educational space, and they were like, so why do you think we should have like a wide breadth of products that like caters to a lot of people? And I was like, oh well, you know, like it's important to be like inclusive and you know, people, you know, don't feel things like that. And they're like, that's a good reason, but also like you make more money. And I was like, that is one way to look at it. It's like for some people who maybe have difficult thinking of the sort of like altruism behind kindness, it's like the way that I talk about kindness with people, it's like, oh well, you are nice to people so that they're nice to you too. You treat other people the way you want to be treated. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just a different way of viewing things. And like, it's not like oh, you're only doing nice things because like you think of it as transactional. You know what I mean? But that's a different conversation, right? Like, that's a sort of conditional thing. Like, oh, I'll only do something nice for you because I expect like a tangible favor out of you. You know what I mean? But it's like, I feel like there's a sort of, because any relationship is a two-way street, right? Because you can't just like, you can't expect to have like a friendship where you're only doing all the work. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a time and place for like, oh, you know what? Because I feel like it's like, oh, I'm just gonna do a nice thing for the stranger I'll never meet. Of course, like, but that's a sort of, if you look back, that's a broader like, I help my fellow humans, and hopefully fellow humans will help me too. And that has had like, I'll help random people, and I've had random people help me too. But if you look at it like more sort of like a friendship, it's like, it shouldn't be transactional, right? Like, I do you this favor, you do me one, right? But it's like any sort of relationship, it's like two people gotta put work in. It takes two to tango. Yeah, sometimes good business means treating people right. Sometimes it means screwing people over. That's fair. But it's like in the long run, you know what I mean? Gosh. I don't know. Gosh. Oh my goodness. Sorry, tangent. I was gonna like wrap up, but I thought about that. But yeah, it's like, it shouldn't be thought of, you shouldn't think of it as a transactional thing, but you do gotta understand that it's a two-way street. And that effort has to be put in from both sides in any relationship, right? So, yeah. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I guess I'll start wrapping it up for now. Thank you all very much for being very open-minded and for being very respectful, you know, not just with your time, but also with how you all talk and interact with one another, and how, you know, you all talk to me, I guess, right? You know, I appreciate for those who shared about their thoughts and their feelings, for you know, trusting not just me, but also our community, our space with their thoughts. It's definitely not easy to do that. I can definitely understand that. So thank you all for your time, for whether you're just sitting in and listening in, and or if you're chatting and sharing your experiences. I appreciate you all. I appreciate every single one of you all. And, you know, I mentioned this before, like a general love for community, a general love for fellow humans. So, in a not parasocial way, I do love and appreciate you all. In the way that I appreciate humanity, you know, and this wonderful community that we've built together. And I hope that you all can love and appreciate one another too. You know, I'm sure I've said this before, but I do appreciate our community. I think, you know, yeah, I am very grateful that I can have these sort of times where I can have more vulnerable conversations and thoughtful conversations with you all. Yeah. Really drove that last point home. You know, about like loving your community and loving your fellow man. Human. Oh my gosh. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Anyway, thank you all again once more, and I'll see you all next week. As always, I'm the idol to give you the wings to fly. Cyborg Angel Ria Kamishiro at your service. Bye! There's a really exciting thing on my schedule. Look! Wow! That, wow, I did, kind of reminded me of, you know, that like canned like anime, wow, like that reminded me of. I need to like get that on a soundboard. It's like, wow, kawaii art, thank you. Don't forget to stream Brainworm. There's a worm in my brain, you're the worm in my brain, and you're driving me insane. Check it out, it's on streaming services. You can watch the music video on my channel. Yeah. Wait, why? Oh god, oh my gosh. Did I miswrite something on my schedule? Is there a date wrong? Oh god, because you had to go get the link. I was like, where did I have the typo? All the dates are right, I think. Double checks all my dates. I had to get him a more stream. Oh, don't worry, I'll yap a bit more. Thank you, Shiny. I appreciate all the work that you do for the Archangels and I. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, off collab, woohoo! I don't know what we're doing. I think we're just gonna feel it out, see what the vibe is. Honkai Star Rail 3.1 as well, and then Imposter Factory, woohoo! But yeah, I'll see you all next time. Let me take a look at who we're gonna raid today. I'm hungry. I'm gonna make a chicken wrap. Chicken, cherish my love. Cherish my love. That's an Islet song, isn't it? Isn't it? I believe so. I don't really listen to Islet, so I wouldn't know, but I've heard it around. Cherish my love. I feel like I've heard it on like shorts and stuff. Okay, YouTube's being weird. Why isn't it? Because usually they recommend me at least one person, but they're not recommending me. Oh well, I'll just wrap up. Alrighty, duty. I'll see you all next time.